Hello everyone, and welcome to the end of Elbaf, my first video on YouTube where I will be discussing my theories and predictions for the ending of the Elbaf arc in One Piece. Let's get right into it. First of all, I do think by the end of Elbaf, we will be seeing a Timeskip training arc featuring our beloved Straw Hats. And there are a few reasons I think this, and I'll be comparing to the 3D2Y Timeskip arc and the Wano Udon prison month we spent in Wano before we started fighting the war, essentially. So, let's get right into it. One of the things that I think we should focus on are character roles. In 3D2Y, we saw Kuma zap the Straw Hats each to their own unique island where they could pursue their skills and advance their fighting potential, just get stronger, which you can't deny that needs to happen right now in One Piece. So, we saw Nami on Wadiria, improving her climb attack by learning about weather eggs and becoming, just in general, a better navigator. We saw Chopper learning more about medicine. We saw Luffy training in hockey with Rayleigh. In Wano, during that month we spent, the Straw Hats each had roles. Usopp was a total oil salesman, which obviously is helping him become a better liar, of course. And Frankie was working as a carpenter, which helps him hone in his skills as a shipwright. Of course, his mission there was to gain the plans to Kaido's castle on Onigashima, but nonetheless, it was very fitted to him, no? So, here's what I think the Straw Hats are being set up to do during the time skip that will be coming at the end of Elbaf. I think there's going to be a massive training conglomerate with Luffy, Zoro, Frankie, well, maybe Frankie. Everyone's going to be involved at least a little bit, but it's mainly going to be Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Usopp, who will be working, and Jinbei, who will be working alongside Skabragaban and most likely Loki, the Cursed Prince, to increase their potential with hockey, maybe learn future sight. I think there's some characters who are going to just get hockey in general. I think we're going to see even maybe Nami and Robin develop hockey by the end of this training. Alright, let's get into the more specific roles that we're going to see outside of this big general training, because even though I'd like to say it's going to be as specific as the islands were during 3D2Y, I don't think that's the case, and I think there's one main reason for that, which I will get into soon. But those who will be performing specific roles, I see Robin spending a lot of time training, like reading the lost books of Ohara, studying as much as she can about the Void Century, the Harley text. She's going to be looking into that mural. Other books in Elbaf that weren't from Ohara, I think Robin is going to be spending a lot of time with her nose in a book. She is going to learn everything she can, and maybe she'll have a lore dump ready for us at the end of the training arc. Alright, who else do I think will have a special role that they can perform? I think when Yggdrasil inevitably gets destroyed, Frankie's going to have a huge role in processing it. Unless it's like burnt to ash, I do think even like splinters from that tree would be worth processing for Frankie. You know, like one splinter from that tree is probably enough to build like a whole nother deck onto the Sunny. There will be a role for Frankie when it comes to processing, building with, working with the Yggdrasil tree. He's going to be involved there. I think Chopper's also going to be spending a lot of the time in the library alongside Nico Robin, learning more about medicine, etc. But both of them, Robin and Chopper, need to awaken their devil fruits before we get into the final arc of One Piece. And I think Nami and Robin, I'm expecting them to be able to use hockey by the end of this too. Like, they're not going up against the Gods Knights unless they get hockey under their belts. You know what I mean? There's no shot. But they're going to want to fight aside their captain, and they're going to want to learn hockey. And I'll get into more of their motivations later. Alright. But can't you just imagine it, Ripley training Nami and Robin in hockey? Like, the three of them just surrounded by, like, this bursting cloud of hockey lightning? Like, that would be amazing. It's beautiful. I'm already picturing it. Oda, hook me up, please. Anyways, here's the main reason why I think we're going to see mostly a training conglomerate instead of unique roles during this time skip. Because it is too late in the game to split up. It's just too late in the game. Guys, when they were splitting up before, they had all the time in the world, but we've seen it. Like, people are pursuing the One Piece now. The red-haired pirates, they're after it. The Blackbeard pirates, they're making moves. And other people, they have 3 out of 4 poneglyphs. Same with the Straw Hats. Like, they're not splitting up. They have to be ready to go. Like, they're in a crucial period because, that's right, we are entering the 3rd and final act of One Piece. And we did this before, too. So, Wano was on a 3-act structure, which is what I'll kind of be referencing here. So, we saw the first act of Wano pretty much up until the Udon prison arc. And then we saw the second act of Wano when Luffy was training there. And then the 3rd and final act was the battle on Onigashima, which I think that 3rd act is going to represent the final act of One Piece, like, for the sake of what I'm saying here. And the reason I think it's going to be preceded by a training arc is because last time we saw an act shift at the end of the Paradise half of the Grand Line, we also saw the 3D2Y time skip. And I think as we entered from the first act into the second act, we needed a long time skip, but when we enter from 2nd to 3rd, it's going to be a little bit shorter, maybe around like just under a year is what I'm expecting. But nonetheless, the Straw Hats are about to need to fight the God's Knights. When we saw the first act of One Piece, it was more focused on 7 warlords, kind of like Marines, but then we got into the next act of One Piece, which the second act, following Marineford, we're now concerned with admirals and with Yonkos. Big Mom was a threat right from the beginning of Fishman Island, like, her ship was coming there for the candy tax, right? And the 3rd act of One Piece is going to bring us the threat of Blackbeard. I think is going to be the main, like, pirate threat, sort of being like a Yonko 7 warlord, which he's been both of, is one of. And then the main, like, government or non-pirate threat we're going to see is the God's Knights in Gorosei, which already we're getting a taste of that, same as how the Straw Hats had to fight the admirals on Sabaody and a little bit even, like, on Longland. So I think they've kind of been introduced. It's interesting, you point out these similarities, it makes you believe what I'm saying, you know what I mean? Anyways, but new powers are also being introduced. We saw devil fruits at the beginning of One Piece, introduced in Chapter 1, and then we start to bring Haki into the mix in Act 2 after Rayleigh trains Luffy in it. But now we have the Abyss that we learned about this last chapter. It's finally got a name. What are the extents of this power? Is this some sort of demonic thing that Imu is the root source of, or is this something that anyone can tap into? Is this something Shanks was able to use? Is that why his arm is off? Who knows? But we have a lot to learn, and the Straw Hats, they do too. All right, and that's about what I think the change in act means. I think the Straw Hats are changing an act. But before they do that, the final harbinger of a new act in One Piece is a heart-wrenching, life-changing death. Who do I think is going to die? First, let's look at 3D2Y. Ooh, I rhymed. So, I think Ace's death is obviously what I'm referring to as the major character death. It's lit a fire under Luffy to protect his friends. He never wanted to feel that weak again. Even Nami, we saw her reaction on Witheria. She was hurting to be with her captain. She wanted to support him. All the Straw Hats, they came back stronger to fight for their captain. They felt so much for him in that moment. That death lit a fire under them too. In Wano, we saw the death of Yasui. He died up there, like on the cross, and lit a fire in all the samurai. He was able to give hope back to those who were defeating Kaido. He saved their plan. Like, his death literally lit a fire under that whole plan. Like, it was because of him that those embers of revolution kept burning. And I think the most hard-hitting, motivational death that could happen here on Elbaf, that is being led up to, it could be happening this week. It could be happening tomorrow. That's why I'm working on this video right now, because I think Colin is about to meet his maker. And here's why. So, we've already seen some themes of child mortality in One Piece. Namely, well, and by One Piece I mean Elbaf arc. Namely, at the beginning, when we saw Robin's expansion of her flashback, where she was contemplating ending her own life as an 8-year-old. And proportional to giant age, I think that's about how old Colin is. Obviously, he's 20, but I think he's about 8 in giant years. So that's an interesting thing to open this arc off with. A child who's close to death. And this character of Colin, what do we know about his mortality? Because mortality is relevant. We've seen the child mortality also with the God's Knights literally pursuing these children. That's why I'm worried someone's gonna die. The God's Knights are after them. The God's Knights don't play around. I can't imagine they're gonna let it slide if Colin tries to fight back. But Colin specifically, all we've been hearing about is mortality as it relates to him and his family. His dad won't stop talking. I'm gonna die before my wife. If he's gonna die before his wife, he certainly expects to die before his son. Think how devastated he would be to lose his son, who's supposed to outlive him by hundreds and hundreds of years, to lose his son at the age of 20. Oh, Oda would be cooking. And here's what I think would make it even better, or even worse. I know Shamrock is on his way out, but what if before he leaves, he goes to set up this game he has planned at the Walrus School and Colin fights back against him? Can you imagine how hard it would hit Luffy, etc.? Anyone who saw this, especially, Scopper, Ripley, the parents of Colin, to see essentially Shanks kill Colin, who is a parallel for Luffy. Wouldn't that be interesting? We have Shanks who sacrificed his arm to save Luffy, and then we would have Shamrock who sacrificed Colin, who's a Luffy parallel, to save his own, his own self, just actually for fun, to play a game. That would be, it would be crazy. But maybe it won't be Shamrock who does it, because I know he's kind of trying to get back to Marijois. However, I think it would be so hard-hitting for Luffy to see that. And if Nami sees this, or even hears about this, she's going to be training. She's going to get hockey the next day. She will be so mad if she has to watch a child die. There's 2 things she doesn't mess around about: money and children. Nami is not going to be happy. And this is going to make the God's Knights look so bad. Just like when Akainu killed Ace, everyone was like, he's the most heartless villain in One Piece. He's horrible. When Orochi executed Yasui, oh my god, no one likes Orochi. The God's Knights, anyone who, they're going to think they're so bad. Everyone in story, everyone reading is all going to think, those guys are bad news. We need to get as strong as we can and defeat them as fast as we can before they kill more children or innocent people. And that is just going to be the perfect motivation. I know you can picture all the Straw Hats hearing about it, learning this kid who they had these moments with, we're going to be robbed of. It's like if Tama died, they're going to be devastated. They're going to fight so hard. And I think this death of Colin is going to be what makes them do the worst. Because here's the thing, they're not strong enough right now to fight back against the God's Knights. That's why they need a training arc. That's why they need a time skip. They don't have what it takes to defeat those guys. And I'm not trying to be rude, maybe Luffy could hold his own, but they don't have what it takes. Nami against them, no shot. Usopp against them, bad news. They need to train. So I think they will resort to freeing Loki and destroying the World Tree, essentially taking the property value of Elbaf. Who wants this destroyed world? Maybe they'll even convince them that the warrior race they're trying to subjugate has all died in the natural disaster. It would be perfect. And that way Loki gets to destroy the world while saving it. That will put him in the right side of this whole struggle. He's going to be with the Straw Hats, maybe joining the Straw Hats, or maybe just aligned with them, allied. Anyways, that's how I see it ending. Can't you just picture it? Together, the Straw Hats see the death of Colin at the hands of the God's Knights. They fight as hard as they can, and it's bad. It's almost as bad as Sabaody. Luffy realizes he has the key and books it to free Loki. Together, they take down the World Tree and destroy Elbaf, leave it so there's nothing for the celestial dragons to want from them, and then they're able to train there in peace however long they need before they set off to pursue the One Piece. It's gonna be amazing. And you know that Ripley and Scopper would train as hard as they could to avenge their son. You know the Strats would get so strong. Ooh, just with the fire of Colin's death burning underneath them. It is going to be perfect. I can just picture it. Tell me, after all the points I've made, you don't believe me just a little bit. Tell me lots of other things. Leave some comments. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, what I should do differently next time. If there is a next time. There will be. And please feel free to like and subscribe because hopefully this is one of many videos.